27-year-old Jamie Hart was losing faith that he'd ever lay eyes on that special someone. Until he met an ambitious teaching assistant named Melissa Stredney.
I found her quite attractive. She was kind of quirky, kind of funny. She seemed to be free spirit.
Jamie was in love with her, and this is the woman he wanted to be in his life.
But behind Melissa's pixie style and pretty face was a turbulent past.
She was definitely in a downward spiral. They didn't know what she might do next.
And by the time Jamie saw what he was in for, there was no getting out.
Jamie never believed that she would go to the extreme that she did.
I said, you don't want to do this. I remember my vision going black.
When it comes to love and marriage, things aren't always as they seem. Columbus, Ohio resident Jamie Hart had done his fair share of dating, but had never found the one connection that clicked.
I was just kind of looking for someone to go on a few dates with and see if there was any chemistry.
The 27-year-old collections agent always tried to keep a positive attitude. So in the early summer of 2008, while waiting for coffee at his local cafe, Jamie exchanged smiles with an attractive girl in line.
The line was extremely long. I made the comment, man, we're going to be here for a while. And she kind of chuckled and said,
yeah, it looks like we are.
And we just kind of started talking back and forth.
The young woman introduced herself as Melissa Stredney. And when their coffee came, Jamie decided to keep the ball rolling.
So we just sat down and had a conversation for about an hour or so.
Soon, the two were inseparable.
As the relationship progressed, there was more and more chemistry. I found myself falling in love with her.
Before Jamie knew it, he and Melissa were in a hot and heavy committed relationship just a few months into dating.
He was excited at that time, but me and my wife, we were kind of taken back as to how sudden things were developing in the relationship. But Jamie sounded extremely happy.
Still, Jamie was hesitant when, after 6 months together, Melissa asked him to move in with her.
It kind of seemed like the natural progression of how the relationship was going. But Melissa was moving a little bit more quickly than I was ready to do.
For the first time, Jamie gently put on the brakes. After all, they hadn't been through any of life's trials and tribulations yet. That is, until February that year.
Melissa told me that she was going to resign her position from the university. She didn't really go into detail why, just say there was a misunderstanding with her and some of the students. When I kind of probed about what the misunderstanding was, Melissa was upset, angry, so I didn't really question it.
Jamie wasn't sure what to think, but as the weeks passed, Melissa couldn't seem to stop crying.
She told me that she had depression and some anxiety issues that she was battling with for a few years. She went into a local hospital for depression. So I'm like, this must be a pretty bad spell. But there's a lot of people in the world that do battle depression. So it wasn't anything to stop me from continuing to see her.
Jamie was relieved when Melissa was discharged a week later.
She was taking medication and seeing a therapist once or twice every few weeks. That zeal and passion for life returned. She seemed to be back to her normal self.
Then Melissa told Jamie she had a big surprise for him.
She was at my apartment. She presented me with a card. And it said, congratulations, you're going to be a father. And I'm like, wow. All right, that's exciting.
Jamie was even more stunned when Melissa said she wasn't just pregnant, she was expecting triplets.
My reaction to that was shock. I wasn't out of the realm of possibilities in my mind because twins run in my family. Even though I was worried, like, how are we gonna do this? Being a father was one of my dreams.
But before long, his excitement would turn into heartache, and then horror.
Everywhere he went, she would show up.
She knew exactly what she was doing.
This was not the person I fell in love with. This was the ultimate betrayal.
This early, and he said, yeah, this is what I want.
And as Jamie focused on his future with Melissa, he became even more excited about being a father.
I wanted to be an active member. These were my children that she was carrying, so I wanted to be there for every milestone.
But when Melissa started scheduling prenatal visits without him, Jamie couldn't help but feel slighted.
They always seemed to be when I was working or when I had other obligations. I would say, if you're having an appointment, let me know. I can get those days off. And she said she didn't want to burden me with that because we were in a little bit of financial difficulty, so missing work wasn't really an option.
But when Melissa shut Jamie out of a major pregnancy milestone, he grew flat out angry.
Sometime in the early stages of the first trimester, Melissa told me that she got an ultrasound. And I went, oh, awesome, can I see it? She said, well, my dad wanted to see it and I already mailed it to him. Why would you send it to your father but not let the father of the children see it? And I was quite upset that she did that. I wanted to be there for every appointment, and I made it very clear that that was very important to me.
Sadly, he wouldn't get the chance.
A few days later, I came home and Melissa was distraught, and she told me that she went to the hospital that day and that she actually miscarried. You know, I did my best to comfort her. I was in a state of shock. Both of us shed a lot of tears that night.
Jamie barely had time to feel his own grief before Melissa plunged back into a dark depression. Jamie even found himself questioning his desire to get married now that they were no longer expecting.
I had serious thoughts about ending the engagement, but I kind of thought to end a relationship, especially someone you loved, after they had a miscarriage would be unforgivable.
He had already asked her to marry him, and he wanted to do the right thing as far as not abandoning her.
Then, almost overnight, Jamie saw an entirely different side to Melissa.
She would call me, like, worthless, just anything that she could think of. I would just kind of zone her out and not really hear what she was saying.
Until one night, when Melissa took her abuse to the next level.
It was like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. I woke up and she was over top of me, just swinging away, physically assaulting me. She was telling me to get out of the house.
But when Jamie tried to leave, Melissa suddenly apologized.
She kind of made it into like, if I would have left, I would be abandoning her.
Jamie decided to let the incident slide. But despite his best efforts at keeping Melissa calm, there was no peace on the horizon. And before long, Jamie would realize his unhappy fiancée wasn't just miserable, she was monstrous.
She was very angry. Who knew what she was capable of?
It was crazy. He never believed that she would do that.
She knew where I would be. It was becoming more and more scary. I was thinking, how much longer can she do this?
In September of 2010, Jamie Hart's fiancée, Melissa Stredney, was becoming volatile after a miscarriage.
She was verbally abusing me and she was physically assaulting me. Even though she was suffering from depression, I was turning more and more into the victim.
She would threaten to commit suicide if he left. I think he had a sense of responsibility to her. He really was deep into that caregiver role.
Then one night, Jamie woke up to a frightening sight.
Melissa was awake, and I was like, what are you doing up? And she's like,
I can't sleep.
and then I see that she has in her hands a kitchen knife. I'm kind of dazed and confused. I'm like, why do you have a knife? And her only response was,
I can't sleep. I can't sleep.
Jamie stayed calm and gently took the knife from Melissa's hand.
I was more concerned she was going to hurt herself than myself. I ended up staying up with her the rest of the night. She eventually kind of dozed off.
The following morning, Jamie reached out to Melissa's therapist. And soon Melissa was on some new medication. But Jamie was torn.
I was very upset. This woman was completely different than the woman that I met initially. But I can't abandon her. I was concerned about how she was going to get by if I would have left.
But just a few days later, Jamie finally reached his breaking point.
One evening I came home from going out with a friend. I noticed that Melissa was gone, which was kind of strange. But I also noticed some of my personal belongings were gone. There were mementos, photos, miscellaneous records, totally missing. I immediately called her and asked her where my belongings were. She just laughed and hung up on me. It was at that moment that I made the decision that I had enough. These were things that I would never be able to replace. She was stealing my memories. I called my father up and we packed up as much stuff as I could in my car and his car and left.
It was a separation of not only ending the relationship, but ending him knowing Melissa altogether.
But Melissa wasn't going to let Jamie go without a fight.
She was starting to send me threatening messages, saying that she would find me and stab me. They were always of physical harm. She knew where I would be at certain times of the day. It was becoming more and more scary. She would show up 1, 2, sometimes 3 times a week and try to confront me. I started trying to alter my patterns or places where I would be.
But Melissa would not be ignored. On December 14th, 2010, Jamie bundled up and drove into work. As he exited his car, braced against the freezing wind, he found himself facing something much colder.
I only made it about 10 feet from my car where I was immediately stopped by Melissa. I asked her what she was doing here. Melissa turned to me and said, "Get in my car or else." And I'm like, "Excuse me?"
Knowing instinctively not to get in, Jamie attempted to reason with Melissa.
And she pulled out a silver and black handgun. I was shocked, scared. I said, "What are you doing? You don't want to do this. Please put the gun away." At that moment, time kind of stopped for me. When it was clear to her that I was not going to get into her car, she shot me. I remember my vision going out black.
Pierced by the bullet in his left eye, Jamie's light dimmed and his sight vanished as Melissa fled the scene.
Melissa immediately pulled out of the parking lot.
8 separate people saw this incident.
And people are already on the phone with the police.
Emergency vehicles were dispatched as authorities hurtled down Ohio highways to find and stop an armed madwoman.
It was like pulling a pin on a grenade.
Police were converging on the area. They didn't know what she might do next.
On December 14th, 2010, police were hunting Jamie Hart's ex-fiancée, Melissa Stredney, after she fired a bullet into his face and fled. Within minutes, an officer locked onto Melissa's car.
Police officer pulled out behind her, lights and sirens signaling her to pull over. She would not stop.
As Melissa accelerated toward a busy intersection, the quick-thinking policeman made a tough decision.
He executed a maneuver in which he rammed the back of her car. With guns drawn, other officers converged. They didn't know if she still had that gun in the car or not. They didn't know what she might do next. They were able to pull her out of the car at gunpoint and take her into custody at that point.
Melissa slowly surrendered, but the gun was missing.
Melissa told the police that as she pulled out of the parking lot and onto the main road, she had pitched a gun out the window. They started walking from the point of where she left the business to the point of where she was arrested, and they were able to find the gun.
Melissa was charged with 5 felonies, including attempted murder and kidnapping. Meanwhile, Jamie was rushed to the nearest hospital.
I was instantly in shock. That was kind of a sleepless night for us. We were numb. Jamie, he was just in our prayers.
Miraculously, Jamie survived, but the bullet had completely destroyed his left eye, shattering his skull and entering the base of his tongue. Luckily, the bullet never pierced his brain.
They had to surgically remove the eye. It was shocking to see him laying there. It was very emotional.
Jamie's sight returned in his right eye, and as he healed, he began to see the full extent of Melissa's deceptive nature, starting with the misunderstanding with her job at the university.
Melissa told me that she resigned her position. What I later came to find out, she was fired from university.
Apparently, Melissa had encouraged her lab class to cheat and to leave early. When some of the students reported her, she went on the offensive.
She followed up with making threatening emails to the students to the point where the police became involved. No formal charges were filed, but she was dismissed from her position.
And Jamie couldn't help but wonder if Melissa had lied about other things, too.
I ended up having doubts about whether the whole pregnancy was made up. I wasn't able to go to any of the doctor appointments. Never saw the ultrasound. I only had her word that she miscarried.
As Jamie tried to come to grips with all that had happened, Melissa claimed the shooting was an accident.
How did it go?
I don't know. I wasn't even holding the trigger at first. I'm not really a murdering person.
But when witnesses reported to police that Melissa aimed to kill, her defense shifted to an insanity plea. She described a lifelong battle with mental illness.
I was diagnosed with major depression when I was 12 and I was in a mental institution for 6 weeks. I went in the hospital in November because I'm bipolar and I went manic.
But Melissa's actions after she shot Jamie left her defense full of holes.
She fled the scene. She got rid of evidence. She was rational. She was goal-directed. There's lots of bipolar people out there that don't commit violent crimes of this nature. She knew what she did was wrong.
On June 21st, 2011, just 6 months after her vicious attack, Melissa finally accepted a plea deal to the lesser charges of felonious assault and tampering with evidence. She was sentenced to 15 years in prison.
I really wasn't happy with the 15 years. I think she uses her mental illness as an excuse for a lot of her actions. She knew exactly what she was doing that day. Her goal that day was to end my life.
Today, after 8 surgeries, Jamie's left eye socket and cheekbone have been successfully reconstructed.
They actually split his skull to go in and try to build up the cheekbones. That's pretty major surgery. He really hung in there. He's very brave.
But the emotional damage has been far worse.
I'm very guarded. I now have anxiety, post-traumatic stress, the nightmares that I suffer.
Though he'll painful divorce, Holly Patterson found love again with a man who seemed too good to be true.
He opened the car door for me. He would buy me flowers. I just felt like I was in a fantasy.
Brian Angel was a doting boyfriend and an amazing father.
Brian was definitely the cool dad. All my friends thought so too.
He worshipped the ground that Holly walked on.
But this angel had fallen far from heaven.
He was always lurking, always sneaking.
And Brian would drag Holly and her family through a living hell.
Is she hiding from somebody? Is something happening to her? Do I call 911? What do I do?
When it comes to love and marriage, things aren't always as they seem. While working at a hardware store in Endicott, New York, 32-year-old divorcee Holly Patterson had seen her share of strapping men walk through the doors. But in January of 1999, one of those studs came to stay.
I was supervising head cashier, and I noticed a guy just started working. He was handsome and kind of caught my eye.
His name was Brian Angel. And from what Holly could tell, the 29-year-old more than lived up to his name.
He just seemed friendly and he used to come in with his daughters a lot. And I just thought that was sweet. And all the girls thought, what a great guy.
But like most perfect men, Brian was perfectly taken.
He was married and she was beautiful. And he treated her great. I mean, he just seemed like the all-around good guy. Perfect husband, great dad.
And after a difficult divorce, Holly, too, was focused on being a great parent to her own daughters, 8-year-old Alexis and 2-year-old Peyton.
After my ex and I separated, I just took the time to be myself. I really just wanted to be alone, to raise my kids.
Still, every time Holly saw Brian with his family, she couldn't help but hope that her own Mr. Perfect might still be out there. Then one day, a glimmer of hope.
I was out in the break room and Brian had come out and he said, I'm in the middle of a horrible separation. I was really taken back because I thought they had the perfect life.
Over the next 6 months, the co-workers became friends as Brian filled Holly in on his far from perfect marriage.
Brian told me that his wife would just instigate fights with him and tear him down. So I said, well, what are you going to do? You know, you got those kids and everything. I know it's not easy. I felt horrible for him, and I kind of started getting a soft spot for him.
And in the fall of 2000, after Brian finalized his divorce, Holly felt comfortable taking the relationship to the next level. That's when Mr. Nice Guy turned into Mr. Wonderful.
He seemed like Prince Charming.
He opened the car door for me. He would buy me flowers for no special reason. He'd take me to dinner. I finally felt like a princess.
Best of all, Brian was terrific with Holly's children.
He had his 4 daughters come over to introduce to my daughters, and all 6 of them were playing, and they were all getting along well.
I thought he was really cool. He was fun to be around. He was like a big kid, and I looked at him more like a friend.
In June of 2001, after crashing on friends' couches for the past 6 months, Brian hinted at moving in with Holly and her daughters.
I thought if he just stays on the couch and he looks for a place to stay,
I can tolerate it for a week or 2.
After Brian had moved in, everything seemed to be going great. He was there for the girls. It just seemed like a perfect setup.
But what seemed like perfection would become unspeakably flawed.
He's a person that stretches boundaries. If you stretch them too fast, they snap.
I can't imagine what went through his mind to think that he'd ever get away with it.
And soon, Holly would see the devil lurking behind Brian's angel eyes.
I couldn't believe that my whole world came to an end. It just crashed down on me.
In the summer of 2001, Holly Patterson and her boyfriend Brian Angel were the picture of blended family perfection.
Brian usually would get his 4 girls once or twice during the week and then every other weekend. Of course, my daughters looked forward to spending time with his girls.
He would let us do whatever we wanted. Brian was like my buddy.
We had the perfect life. We were like the Brady Bunch, just all girls.
But circumstance was about to test their new family bonds.
Brian lost his job at the hardware store. He kind of butted heads
With one of the managers out there.
It did hit the household income a little bit. So we kind of had to make cutbacks, and it became a little bit of a struggle.
Brian reassured Holly that he'd land another job quickly. But in the meantime, he'd make himself useful by babysitting the girls after school.
It was comforting knowing that Brian was home with the girls while I was at work. I knew he was taking good care of them, making dinner, and the house was clean.
He did everything for Holly's girls. Brian talked about them all the time. He absolutely adored the 2.
In fact, there was little Brian wouldn't do for the benefit of the girls.
On Alexis's 9th birthday party, she had about 8 girls spend the night. And then later that night, after we went to bed, something woke me up. And I looked and Brian wasn't in bed with me. So I went to go look for him. And when I went to the girls' room, I noticed that Brian was in there. And I said, "Brian, what are you doing?" And he got up real quietly and, shh, one of the girls were choking. I took her a glass of water. Go back to bed. And I said, "Okay." I'm glad he heard her.
For months, the Patterson Angel clan coasted along, with Holly bringing home the bacon and Brian holding down the fort. But in the winter of 2002, Holly noticed a change in her older daughter Alexis's attitude toward Brian.
They still thought he was funny, but now he would discipline them if they were bad. I noticed Alexis was kind of pulling away, kind of giving him dirty looks and rolling her eyes once he started playing the stepfather role.
Rough patch with Alexis aside, things were looking up for the family when Brian found a great new job as a union carpenter.
We worked on the same job sites, and it was always great to work with Brian. Brian was the one that anytime you needed help, he was there.
Everybody kind of counted on him. Whatever needed to be, he was always helping.
Brian's kindness and generosity was unmatched, right down to the family's bedtime ritual.
Every night before bed, the girls would go to bed with a drink. Brian would get their drinks all ready to go. He'd have Peyton's sippy cup ready with juice or Alexis's glass of water ready to go. He often made my tea to go to bed, and I thought that was sweet.
But sweet dreams soon became a thing of the past when Peyton started having nightmares.
Peyton would start yelling for me. "Mom, come here, Mom," and crying. I'd go up and I'd say, "What's the matter, honey? I had a bad dream," and I would soothe her back to sleep. And Brian would get really mad at me for going in and comforting her. And he'd say, "She needs to grow up. She can sleep through the night."
And she'd ask me to lay down with her.
And I wanted to because I wanted to comfort her, but I knew that if I started that ritual, and I knew I'd do it every night.
Meanwhile, Holly was developing some strange sleeping problems herself.
Brian had started remodeling a couple of the rooms, and I didn't know if it was allergies or something from dust kicking around, but sometimes it was really hard to wake up in the morning, and I would get to work and say, "I don't know what's wrong with me. I don't feel like I can function. I'm just so tired."
But dust and drowsiness seemed a small price to pay for Brian's hard work on improving her family's home.
Brian was passionate about what he did, so he worked really hard doing stuff around the house. He finished the kitchen for me. He treated me and the girls like gold.
But Brian's motives would prove to be anything but selfless.
Nobody really knows what happens in the middle of the night when he's out lurking in the dark.
And soon Holly would discover just how heartless her Mr. Wonderful could be.
She would not stay at the house. She feared him.
I just felt like I was in the middle of a nightmare. Everything was spinning. Like, what is going on?
Despite a few sleep issues, in the summer of 2005, Holly Patterson and her boyfriend Brian Angel were living a storybook life. But one night, Holly awoke to a disorienting sight.
I woke up and Brian was standing right at the end of my bed, underneath the opening to the attic. I said, "What are you doing?" And he kind of looked at me funny, like I scared him. And he said, "Killing a bug." And I really didn't think anything of it. I was half asleep.
So I kind of just let it go.
And shortly after Brian started his new carpentry job, Holly noticed he seemed to have a short fuse.
Most of the time, Brian was great to be around, but once he would get angry about one little thing, it was an explosion of anger and him throwing things and screaming.
Brian was changing in ways Holly never expected. He even began drinking frequently.
I didn't know what was going on. It seemed to be a daily thing, causing a strain on our relationship because he was coming home at 7 or 8 at night, drunk, and he would just be cocky and ornery, and his Mr. Perfect kind of started to fade.
After 5 years together, it seemed this Brady Bunch was losing its shiny, happy veneer.
especially when Holly noticed Alexis, now 13, was starting to become an introverted teenager.
Alexis was really kind of withdrawn.
She secluded herself to her room a lot.
But Holly was taken aback when Brian said Alexis had started showering in the dark.
And I said, well, I didn't even know she turned the light off.
You can see from down the stairs that the lights are off.
And I said, she can take a shower in the dark if she wants to. She was very private, kept to herself. I noticed Nikki, her best friend that used to be here on a daily basis, wasn't coming over anymore. And I asked her, where's Nikki? And she kind of passed it off to being in the middle school and them kind of drifting apart.
So Holly was grateful when Brian suggested some BFF bonding time for the girls in the country.
I had to stay back here and work, so Brian offered to take the girls up to Seneca Lake to go jet skiing and, you know, just have a good weekend together.
But when they returned, Alexis let her mother in on a secret.
She said, Brian let Nikki get drunk. I said, she's 13. And she said, yeah, and he drank with her. So I said, really? Are you kidding me? I was shocked.
So I went to Brian right away.
Brian explained he'd found Nikki sneaking around with a bottle of alcohol she'd found.
He said, I didn't let her drink.
So I was really bothered by it.
Combined with the escalation of his own drinking and aggressive outbursts, Holly began to reconsider their relationship.
And I gave him the ultimatum. I said, you can't be the man that you were when I first met you. I said, I don't want to be with you. And he said, I promise, I'll change, I promise.
To Holly's relief, Brian took her ultimatum seriously, and the next 3 years flew blissfully by. And in May of 2008, in front of a crowd of hundreds at a local racetrack, Brian asked Holly to become his Mrs. Angel.
So Holly, will you be my wife?
And I said yes, and everybody was cheering. My daughters were so excited for me. They were very happy. They hugged me, they hugged Brian.
After 8 years together, Holly and Brian finally tied the knot with all 6 of their daughters standing by their sides.
The whole family was at the wedding, so it was nice to just have everyone together.
And the newlyweds couldn't have been happier when Holly discovered she was pregnant 8 months later, this time with a boy. When their son Dallas was born in December 2010, Holly felt blessed to be living her dream.
This time being pregnant just meant the world to me.
With Brian being there and being so loving, and I just knew that this just is perfect.
But that summer, Holly's perfect life would take a devastating turn. While Peyton stayed home with Brian, Holly took Alexis to get settled in for her first year at college.
I spent the day with Alexis, you know, at her school, and I noticed that Peyton had texted me. And I looked at it and it said, Mom, you need to call me. This is an emergency.
Holly's heart leapt into her throat, and she immediately called Peyton.
The way she answered the phone was odd to me because she kind of was in a whisper. And I said, what is going on? What are you doing?
What Peyton said next would turn Holly's future dreams into an utter nightmare.
If she could have killed him, she would have right there.
I said, you need to get out of the house. You need to leave that house right now.
On the night of March 25th, 2011, while away with her daughter Alexis, Holly Angel received an emergency call from her youngest daughter, Peyton.
She goes, I can't talk. I'll call you back. I said, don't do this to me. I said, text me or something. So I hung up with her, frantic. Is she hiding from somebody? Is something happening to her? Do I call 911? What do I do? What if she doesn't text me?
After several heart-pounding minutes, Peyton's text finally came through, and what she had to say nearly dropped Holly to her knees.
She said, Mom, Brian's walking around the house naked, telling me to get in the shower and saying he is gonna get sexual favors. I said, oh my God, Peyton. And I'm panicking. I said, you need to get out of the house. You need to leave that house right now. And I said, start walking like you're walking to your dad's house. I'll get a hold of Grandma and tell her to come pick you up.
I was really scared because if Brian looked out his window, he could see me walking.
Within minutes, Peyton was safe in her grandmother's care, and Holly began to process what her youngest daughter had said.
I said to Alexis, has he ever said or done anything like this to you?
And she put her hands over her eyes and she just started crying. And I just said, what is going on? And she said, he's doing it to Peyton too?
Holly was stunned to learn that Brian had been preying on Alexis and her sister for 10 years. Her heart crumbled as Alexis confessed that Brian used to watch her shower from a vent in the attic.
I knew that he was up there. So I decided after that I would just shower in the dark. It really scared me.
And I thought, well, what was he doing when I woke up that day? Was he jumping up into that attic? So all these memories are coming back of things that just seem strange, out of place.
But nothing could have prepared Holly for what Alexis would say next.
Sometimes
I woke up in the middle of the night and my pants were down.
when I woke up in the morning, I would see Brian in my room, and he would always get real jumpy if I woke up while he was in there. And it just, like, scared me.
And I said, honey, I'm so sorry.
Holly's mind raced as she thought back through Brian's behavior over the years.
Things I couldn't put my finger on, and now they made perfect sense. When Peyton would wake up in the middle of the night, screaming, with him helping us get ready for bed with drinks, I think he very well could have been putting sleeping pills in our waters at night. I was devastated. Everything I thought I knew of him, the dream that I thought I lived in, my whole world
came to an end. It just crashed down on me.
Holly immediately contacted the girl's father, who alerted the police. And on March 27, 2011, Brian Angel was arrested for sexual abuse in the first and second degree.
We all, just cried. I thought I had a wonderful marriage, and it never was. And my husband, that I thought was the man of my dreams, just got arrested for sexually assaulting my two girls.
And Holly's daughters were not the only victims. While Brian had not preyed on his biological children, after his arrest, several neighborhood girls came forward with their own tales of abuse while on playdates at the Angel home.
He was always lurking, always sneaking, and so all the kids recall pants off, underwear off, but they don't know how it happened in the middle of the night.
And that camping trip to Seneca Lake? Brian had actually supplied Alexis's friend Nikki with the alcohol she supposedly found.
He wanted to be the fun dad, the fun father.
Like, yeah, we're gonna give him alcohol and stuff like that.
But this is part of the grooming process to get him to the next level where he can do things for his own sexual gratification.
On February 15th, 2012, Brian Angel pled guilty to first and second degree sexual abuse for molesting Alexis and Peyton. But rather than endure a painful trial, the additional victims agreed to a plea deal.
The kids in this grand jury room were crying, and you feel terrible for them. It's basically a plea deal to avoid the trial, so that no other charges would be brought against them, and avoid a lot more hurt and then let the healing begin.
Brian Angel was sentenced to 3 years in prison. Today, Holly struggles to believe that Brian Angel, her charming, handsome husband, was really a devil in disguise.
I just felt tricked. I felt betrayed by everything.
Nothing was real. Nothing, not even him.
He was able to fake this wonderful man, and the real him was that monster.
And even though the experience has been difficult, Holly and her girls are determined to get through this together.
My mom and I have always been real.
Judith Mawson wanted nothing more than to be a devoted wife. And she thought she had finally found a man who appreciated her.
Gary was my friend, my lover, my companion, my everything.
She couldn't wait to come home. She'd run to the door with open arms.
They couldn't have been happier in my eyes. It was like a marriage made in heaven.
But Judith's happy life would vanish when her husband Gary was accused of being one of the most notorious criminals in American history.
There was just these continual calls of more bodies being discovered. It was the most famous unsolved murder case in America.
I remember going over and sitting down on the couch, and I just sat there and cried and cried.
When it comes to love and marriage, things aren't always as they seem. Love hasn't always come easy to Judith Mawson. When she was just 20 years old, an Englishman with a sophisticated flair swept this small-town girl off her feet.
It was like love at first sight. I met him in like September of 1964, and then we were married in January of 1965, just a few months later.
Soon, the couple had 2 children and a tidy house outside of Seattle. But just after their 3rd anniversary, Judith's husband dropped a bombshell.
He said, "Judith, there's something I need to tell you." He told me that he's bisexual, and I said, "Well, what's that?" I had no idea what it was.
Judith did her best to make it work, but after almost 20 years of marriage, she decided to strike out on her own.
I was getting more independent as time went by. And that's when I got divorced from him, because I did not want to live his lifestyle anymore.
8 months after her divorce, Judith was finally coming into her own. One evening at a local bar, a tall stranger with a big smile walked up and asked her to dance. His name was Gary Ridgway.
We danced to the country western music, and that was fun and nice. Later on, as the evening went by, he kind of bent down and kissed me. And I'm like, wow.
In the months that followed, Judith and Gary got to know one another.
Gary was so kind and gentle and attractive, always smiling and pleasant. He never got angry.
Gary was practically perfect, except for that nasty scarring on his right arm.
I asked him about the scars on his arm. He had told me that he was working on a car and it caught on fire and burned his arm. And I felt bad for him because it was pretty painful. It did not look good.
Judith accepted Gary's explanation and thought no more about it. Just a few months later, Gary surprised Judith by asking her to live with him.
He invited me to move in his house. And then I remember saying to him, "Well, I've got a lot of furniture."
And Gary's house needed a woman's touch. After all, half the carpet in the bedroom had been ripped out and never replaced.
He invited her to go with him to the carpet store, and he asked her opinion on color and style of carpet, and of course she was delighted to do it.
As odd as the ripped carpet was to Judith, she was thrilled her boyfriend wanted her help in making a home together.
She would just look at him with them eyes, and you know that she loved him. This was her man, you know.
After so many years, life and love were finally good to Judith. She found part-time work at a daycare center and happily kept house, while Gary worked long hours painting trucks at a plant outside of Seattle. But just 2 years into their relationship, the couple's cozy life together was shaken by an unexpected visit.
In 1987, I was working in the daycare center, and 3 very big and tall detectives said they wanted to talk to me, and I had to go with them. I was scared. I didn't know what was happening. And they started questioning me about Gary.
Detectives told her that they had picked up Gary that day and that they were questioning him.
Was Judith's perfect boyfriend keeping a dark secret?
I didn't know who to believe or what to believe. Judith told me, "They have the wrong guy. This cannot be possible."
After a difficult first marriage, Judith Mawson felt sure that her new boyfriend, Gary Ridgway, was a man she could trust.
Gary was my friend, my lover, my companion, my everything.
So Judith was shocked when just 2 years into their relationship, she was visited by several detectives from the local sheriff's department. They wanted to talk to Gary in connection with the Green River Killer investigation.
That was the first time I'd ever heard about it, the Green River Killer, because I never listened to the news, so I didn't know what was going on.
The notorious Green River Killer had been terrorizing the Seattle area for over 5 years.
The Green River Killer was the most famous unsolved murder case in America. It was the biggest case that I know of in the country.
Beginning in 1982, the bodies of strangled prostitutes began to surface along the Green River, a body of water that runs parallel to the Pacific Highway.
We started out with one victim. Then we found a second victim. Then we found a third victim.
When it got up to 10 or 12, then they started saying, we have a serial killer here, and the news started at that time calling him the Green River Killer.
By 1987, the Green River Killer had murdered over 40 women, making him the most prolific serial killer in American history.
There was no distinct pattern. Sometimes it would literally be back to back, maybe 1 or 2 days apart, and then weeks would go by and we wouldn't have any victims, and then suddenly it would start again.
Desperate for leads, detectives focused on regular drivers on the Pacific Highway, and one of those drivers was Judith's boyfriend, Gary Ridgway.
We had thousands and thousands of tips, and we had to follow up on all of them.
Judith did her best to cooperate, and Gary was brought in for questioning. He seemed unnaturally calm.
He was not asking any questions. He was just quiet.
Gary insisted he had nothing to hide and fully cooperated with the King County forensics team.
We did get a saliva swab and hair samples. He had taken a polygraph, had passed it, and that was it. It was dropped.
Gary was released several hours later. When he arrived home, he reassured Judith that his interview with police was just par for the course.
You know, he kind of shrugged it off. He told her that they took in many men and questioned them. Obviously, he didn't do it because they let him go. He told her to just forget about it. It was just a mistake. Let's just get back to living life.
I asked him point blank, Gary, do you have anything to do with this? He says, absolutely not, Jim. He said, it's not me, I didn't do it. And we never spoke any more about it.
Life soon returned to normal for Judith and Gary. They settled into a comfortable, predictable routine.
Gary would go in to work 2 hours early for overtime. He would get up about 4 o'clock in the morning, and then he would go down and make coffee and take his vitamins and set out vitamins for me. And then he would pack up his lunch, and then after he got all ready to go to work, he would come up and give me a kiss goodbye. And I always looked forward to him coming home.
Gary was methodical in the way that he approached everything. And Judith appreciated that. She liked that predictability.
And after another year together, Judith and Gary knew they were finally ready to tie the knot.
I forget exactly how I said it, but I had told him that, well, we're going to get married. You're not getting rid of me. And he said, all right, let's get married.
Good friends Jim and Linda Bailey volunteered their yard for the occasion.
It was a very pretty day. Jim was Gary's best man, and they just seemed so excited.
They couldn't have been happier in my eyes. It was like a marriage made in heaven.
And I just was so happy to become Mrs. Gary Ridgway.
Meanwhile, the search for the Green River Killer continued. Detectives had begun to notice a strange new pattern in the murders.
We were not finding fresh victims. It appeared that whoever this killer was had either moved away or had decided for whatever reason to either stop or really, really slow down.
Despite a 40-member task force, $15 million, and over a decade of painstaking police work, the investigation had gone cold.
There was a theory at one time that maybe he moved on to a different state. You know, the Green River Killer became really like a legend around here.
As the years passed, Judith and Gary planned for retirement and took pleasure in the little things. Tending their garden, raising 2 poodles, and watching movies at night.
We had a wonderful life.
Judith was sure she'd finally found the man of her dreams, until November 30th, 2001, when her life would be shattered forever.
I heard a car drive in the driveway, and there was this knock on the door. I just kind of lost it. Said, no, this can't be.
It was late fall of 2001, and Judith Mawson had been married to Gary Ridgway for over 13 wonderful years.
Gary made me smile every day. I had the perfect husband, I thought.
November 30th, 2001 began like any other day for Judith.
Gary'd already gone to work in the morning, and I heard a car drive in the driveway. And I thought, oh, it's too early for Gary to come home. And there was this knock on the door, and it was the detectives. They were telling me that he was a suspect for the Green River Killer.
Though Gary had been questioned and released 14 years earlier, he never stopped being a suspect.
They said, we want to talk to you, we want to ask you some questions. And I just sat there and cried.
She was just very disbelieving. And she did say, you guys have already questioned him, you guys have already cleared him.
But this time, detectives could back up their accusations with scientific facts.
DNA wasn't part of our vocabulary in '87. By 2000, new techniques for being able to get DNA profiles out of smaller and smaller and smaller samples. And that's what broke the case for Ridgway. All that evidence that was gathered in '82 and '83 now could be processed, and now they could get a DNA profile.
They were able to link his DNA to some of the bodies that were found. And in addition to that, there were some flecks of paint that were known to be used at the plant where Gary painted trucks associated with some of the bodies.
After almost 20 frustrating years, advancements in forensic science had finally blown this old case wide open. Gary Ridgway was arrested and initially charged with 4 counts of murder.
It was like a big brick wall just dropping down and stopping my life. I was just in such shock.
But Gary insisted he was innocent. Desperate for his wife's support, he called Judith from prison.
He called me and told me that he didn't do anything. And I was just so confused.
He was begging Judith to believe him, that there's no way, that he was a nice man. Come on, Judith, you know me. Am I the kind of guy who would murder women? No. You just hang in there. I'll be home soon.
But Gary didn't come home soon. And over the next year, as investigators continued to build their case against him, Judith's world came completely undone.
She was losing everything she'd ever wanted in her life. I don't think she knew that he wasn't guilty. I think she was hoping that he wasn't guilty. She was hoping with all she had because she knew what she was losing.
Judith spent 2 agonizing years waiting for the case to go to trial.
It was like having your heart ripped open and your life stop.
There was a moment there when she really thought it might be better to just die.
She didn't deserve to have that done to her. And that was hard, to watch her cry. She was out there all alone.
In desperation, Judith clung to Gary's promise that the evidence was wrong and that he would soon be released.
He would tell me, no, he didn't do anything. Everything will get taken care of, it'll all disappear, it'll all get better.
Judith's hopes were about to be destroyed.
How do you plead?
I just sat there with tears going down my face, like this is real.
In November 2003, Judith Mawson sat glued to her TV. Her beloved husband, Gary Ridgway, stood accused of the deaths of dozens of women in a 19-year killing spree.
Gary didn't even look like himself anymore. He was some other person.
For the 2 years leading up to his trial, Gary had insisted that he was innocent. But as Judith watched in horror, he finally admitted the shocking truth.
How do you plead? Guilty.
After I heard him say guilty, after everyone's name, I just sat there with tears going down my face. It was like, it's real. This is it. He did it.
Gary pled guilty to 48 murders in all. For Judith, it was inconceivable. The happiest years of her life were spent with the most prolific serial killer in the history of the United States.
How could he have done something like that?
And as Judith looked back at their 16 years together, things that had seemed so innocent at the time suddenly took on a darker light. There was the mysterious missing carpet.
The detectives told me that he had probably rolled up a body in the carpet and then gotten rid of it.
The early mornings when he said he was putting in overtime.
That's probably when he went out and was picking up these women and killed them.
And even the long scar on his forearm.
One of the women had scratched his arm with her fingernails, and then later on he had poured battery acid on it so that it looked more like a burn.
Inside the loving husband that Judith had known for so long lived a monster, and she never even knew it was there.
I don't know that Gary really understood his own reasons for killing, but there seemed to be sort of a pattern that some of the prostitutes insulted him by telling him to hurry up or disrespecting him in some way. And that would set off rage and the urge to kill.
With dozens of women still missing and unaccounted for in the Seattle area, investigators may never know the full extent of Gary Ridgway's killing spree.
He was the worst of the worst. Imagine someone methodically killing individually and personally every single one of these people, one after the other.
Looking back at all the different serial killer cases within the United States at least, there's been a number of just horrific crimes, and I don't know of any of them that really reach the level of Ridgway.
Ironically, it may have been Gary's relationship with Judith that kept the list of his victims from growing even longer.
The kill rate went down during the years that they were together. He never completely stopped killing, but the frequency did go down. And when I interviewed Gary in prison, he told me that he really loved Judith and that was the happiest time in his life, and that his desire for killing really did go down.
I don't think he ever meant to fall in love, but he did.
Sometimes I still kind of tell myself that, I'm not sure if I'll ever trust another man. So I'm going to be real careful if I ever do meet someone. It has been very traumatic.
From his small cell at Washington State Penitentiary, Gary writes to Judith often.
Before I met you, I had a big empty hole in my heart. When I met you, I knew you were the only one who could fill it. I will always love you. Love you forever, Gary.
Linda Bergstrom married a Navy man who promised to keep her safe forever.
We were in love with each other. You can feel it.
James is very protective of her. He really cared what she thought.
But Linda would soon discover the hideous truth about her husband's disturbing double life.
During the day, all he ever thought about was attacking women. And at night, that's all he dreamed about.
Tied her hands behind her back and told her I would never hurt her.
What do you do when the man you once loved turns out to be a monster?
I didn't know when he would snap.
And only you can put him behind bars for good.
He did way too much. He needed to be caught.
When it comes to love and marriage, things aren't always as they seem. Linda Bergstrom grew up in a Texas family where children were seen but not heard.
We were Catholics. There's 2 brothers and 2 sisters. My father, he was rather strict with us. We weren't allowed to have friends. We weren't allowed to walk around the house freely. We were really confined to certain areas.
But after graduating from high school, Linda began to spread her wings. She soon started dating a young man named James Bergstrom.
We met in February of '84. And after a while with us talking and dating, he said, well, will you be my girlfriend? And I said, yes.
20-year-old James worked at the local paint factory. He was quiet and sensitive, and his chivalrous nature won Linda over.
He was very protective of her. He was very solicitous of her. He opened doors. His manners were great. He acted as if he really cared what she thought.
Then, one morning after over a year together, Linda got a phone call that quickly took their relationship to the next level.
James had called me up and he said that he made a decision to join the Navy with his brother. And then he said, but before I go, we're going to get married.
The proposal came as quite a surprise, but Linda knew she wanted to be with James no matter what.
The day that we got married was on April the 25th, 1985. That morning he called me up and he says, get ready, we're gonna go get married. And I'm like, what, you know? He says, just get dressed, we're gonna go do it.
After their speedy courthouse wedding, the newlyweds moved to Bangor, Washington, so James could begin his new career in the Navy.
We drove to Washington State and it was a beautiful view. Everything was new, everything was exciting.
Enchanted by her new surroundings, Linda quickly settled into her new life in the Great Northwest. James, however, didn't seem to make the transition quite as well.
James started to have this temper. He didn't like being in the military. He hated it. I mean, that's all he talked about was getting out of the service.
James had given the Navy a 4-year commitment, but just months into his service, he became determined to find a way out.
All he talked about is going back home, going back to where his friends were at so he can go out and play basketball. That's all he talked about, those 2 things.
James desperately wanted to move back to Houston, where he promised things would return to normal. But life with James would never be normal again. It all came to a head almost 4 years later, on May 18th, 1989. Linda came home from work to find 2 men in suits waiting for her, and they had shocking news.
One of the men confronted me with his badge, and he says he was a detective, and he told me that James was arrested. He says, your husband was caught watching a 53-year-old woman undress. I was like, whoa, no. You've got to be kidding me.
But a peeping Tom was nothing compared to what James would ultimately prove to be.
I was terrified. At that point, I probably went into shock.
In the fall of 1985, 4 years before James was arrested for peeping on a female neighbor, Linda's new husband was having trouble adjusting to Navy life in Washington State.
James hated being in the Navy, and he despised being out on the submarine. And from his first voyage to his second, it just got worse.
It was sort of like a cycle. We would get into arguments before he went to sea. When he came back from sea, we would get into arguments again.
As the months passed, the pattern continued. But soon, James appeared to have finally found a healthy way to deal with the stress.
In order to relieve the stress and the anger, James started to take jogs at night, and they got longer and more frequent. Linda didn't mind him taking a jog. She thought it was a great idea.
And for a while, the nighttime jogging seemed to work.
I noticed that he would kind of mellow out. So everything seemed like it was going okay.
And that life continued without interruption until one night when Linda saw something she was never supposed to see. It was October of 1988. Linda and James were unloading groceries when James suddenly disappeared.
I went upstairs and I turned back and I said, well, where's James? You know, I thought he was helping me with the groceries. So I went downstairs and I kind of looked towards the right and I saw him between the fence and a window. And I looked at him, I says, well, what are you doing? And he saw me and then he picks up a screen and he says, oh, there's this screen, you know, we need a screen for our window.
Linda wasn't sure what she had just witnessed, but she couldn't shake an unmistakable feeling of dread.
I says, no, you were looking in the window, weren't you? He says, no. He says, I wasn't doing that. I questioned that, and he looked rather sincere, you know. He said, I didn't do anything.
Linda was hopeful that the incident was just a misunderstanding. And before long, life returned to normal.
Everything sort of mellowed out. You know, that's when we'd go out places and do things together, and he seemed to be fine.
And life was fine until the spring of 1989, when Protective James began to worry about his young wife's safety.
There was a rapist who had been terrorizing an area called Parkwood for quite some time. He'd been breaking into houses, and James was terrified that this man had shown up at their door.
Parkwood wasn't far from their new home outside of Bangor, Washington, and the media had seized upon the story of the Parkwood rapist.
James told me, you know, there's somebody wearing a ski mask. Lock the doors, you know, make sure the windows are locked.
Linda took appropriate precautions and never thought much about the rapist until just a few weeks later on May 18th, 1989. That was the day when Linda learned that James had been arrested for peeping.
I came into the apartment. There were detectives in the house. They had told me that he was arrested for peeping through a window.
Was James a peeping Tom? The thought was bad enough, but nothing could have prepared Linda for what investigators told her next.
The detective said, we think he is the Parkwood rapist. And I says, look, okay, peeping Tom, maybe, but a rapist? No, no way. So I said, you know what? I don't understand this. I think at that point, I probably went into shock.
Fearing the worst, Linda went down to the station, where James had already confessed to the peeping incident.
I asked him, I said, did you commit this rape? He says, no. He says, I didn't do any of that.
After several hours in custody and heavy questioning, James was finally released.
The police in the Seattle area really couldn't get enough evidence together to charge James, and the Navy was embarrassed by the situation and just wanted James to leave. So they offered to pay his way back to Houston.
At long last, James was free from the Navy, and Linda was hopeful that moving back to Houston might save their struggling marriage. But things were about to go from bad to even worse.
I wasn't sure who he was at this point. That was like living in hell.
By the fall of 1991, 6 years into their marriage, James and Linda Bergstrom were back in Houston and caring for their 18-month-old daughter. But instead of getting better as he'd promised,
Life with James had become unbearable.
Linda really tried hard to keep it together, but James's anger escalated. He would become angry over the smallest thing. He didn't like what she was wearing. He didn't like the way she looked at somebody else. He didn't like something she said to someone.
I wasn't sure who he was. I looked at him as if he was a stranger at this point.
By now, Linda had grown suspicious of James's late-night jogs.
Linda didn't mind James taking the jog, but then she began to see some things that troubled her. James had come home and he'd have grass stains in the torn pants. One day she saw him looking through a window at their apartment complex where she knew that there was a woman at home.
James's behavior became increasingly bizarre, and as the fighting grew worse, James became violent.
James was a typical abusive husband in some ways. He would be physically violent with her and then afterward apologize and say that he loved her.
He threatened to kill me many times. I had bruises. I had a black eye. I was terrified.
Meanwhile, Linda wasn't the only woman in the Houston area living in fear. Detectives from the Houston Police Department were already in hot pursuit of another dangerous man, a rapist preying on women in the greater Houston area.
My apartment manager called me one night and advised me that an individual had come into one of the apartment complexes and had attacked a couple of females. When I went over to the apartment and I spoke with the two young ladies, they said he had a gun and he had a very unusual ski mask that he was wearing.
People in Houston were amazed that this was going on right here in the city. It was big news, made big headlines here.
As the list of victims grew to over 20, Linda began to think that the police in Washington state had been right about James all along.
I would always ask him, I says, did you commit that rape? You know, what happened? And he would say, no, I didn't do that. He says, all I did was look through a window and there's nothing wrong, you know, one honest mistake, you know. He says, you're making a big deal out of this.
As she grew more and more certain that her husband was a rapist, Linda knew she was trapped.
Linda couldn't leave him because if she left him and got a divorce, he told her he would fight for custody of their daughter. And she knew that that meant that the daughter could be victimized.
So instead of leaving her abusive husband, Linda did something most unexpected. She turned from a loving wife to a vigilante, determined to help put James in jail.
I thought, you know what? That's it. I'm going to see to it that this is going to stop.
She monitored how much gas he had in the car. She monitored when he left for work, kept a record of when he got back. If he was going out with a friend to play basketball, she called the friend, made sure that's where he was really going.
It was important to stay because he needed to be caught. He needed to be put away.
Then on the night of December 6th, 1991, Linda finally got the break she needed when the phone rang in the middle of the night.
James called me up, told me, hey, you know, I was arrested. He was out late at night and he got pulled over. He says, I didn't have my license. He says, you're gonna come out here and pay my bond and I'll be out.
Early the next morning, after James was released, Linda went to retrieve his car from the impound lot.
I climbed into the car and I couldn't believe what I saw. I was terrified. I immediately saw duct tape, a ski mask, and I believe he had some rope there too. And I knew these were his toys.
And Linda knew that she had to call the police immediately.
I started passing red lights, stop signs. I didn't care. At this point, I just wanted to get home and call the police department.
Linda filed a report that soon came to the attention of Lieutenant Charles Dunn.
I pulled up that offense report, and Linda Bergstrom had reached out to the Houston Police Department Sex Crimes Division and reported to them that she thought that her husband may be attacking women. And the thing that I keyed on was a ski mask.
And as he dug further, Lieutenant Dunn knew he was scratching the surface of a case utterly unlike anything he'd ever seen before.
We needed to stop James before he did become the most prolific serial rapist in the nation.
I didn't know when he would snap. A person like him, you just don't know.
By December of 1991, Linda Bergstrom's worst fears had been realized. It appeared that her husband James was a serial rapist. But there wasn't enough evidence for the Houston police to make an arrest just yet.
Well, they didn't have any DNA or anything that tied James to these attacks, and so they really needed an eyewitness. They needed someone who could identify him.
The wait was excruciating. For 3 months, Linda lived a nightmare, fearing for her life.
That was like living in hell.
Then, on December 27th, 1992, detectives finally got a huge break in the case.
It began that day when I came into work. Crime analysis was waiting for me. They had the case of the 17-year-old girl, and she actually saw his face.
A 17-year-old girl had heroically fought off the rapist, and her positive ID finally broke the case wide open.
She gave a great description of what happened, what occurred. It was really all we needed to make the case.
James Bergstrom was arrested in the parking lot of his apartment complex that afternoon.
I spotted this vehicle first with the license plate. I immediately went up, removed him from the car, and handcuffed him.
Linda learned of James's arrest later that day.
The phone rang and it was him. And he said, "I'm in jail. They caught me." And he says, I'm tired of this. He says, "I'm gonna get help." And I says, "Good. Finally, you need to tell them everything."
That night, James confessed to attacking over a dozen women.
How did you get in the house? Through the garage door. Tied her hands behind her back and took off her clothes. And I touched her and caressed her and told her I would never hurt her. And I left.
The one thing that he told me that will live with me forever is he said that during the day, all he ever thought about was attacking women. And at night, that's all he dreamed about.
The details of James's crimes spelled out a disturbing story.
James was really not out jogging in order to get physically fit. He was out there stalking women. He was jogging through neighborhoods, looking for open garage doors, looking for women who were home alone, watching to see what was happening in the neighborhoods.
You have to understand, rape and sexual assault are two of the most underreported crimes there are. So, you know, there could be 50, 60, there could be hundreds. And unfortunately, I don't even think James knows.
It was one of the biggest cases of serial rape and sexual assault the Houston PD had ever seen. And everyone agreed that Linda deserved enormous credit for putting James behind bars.
If she had maintained her silence, if she hadn't come forward, I don't know how long it would have been before he was caught and stopped.
Because she elected to stay and because she elected to reach out to law enforcement, we were able to stop James before he did become the most prolific serial rapist in the nation.
James Bergstrom was indicted on 13 counts of aggravated sexual assault and robbery. After pleading guilty to multiple charges, he was sentenced on September 30th, 1992.
I saw the victims as they entered the courtroom, and I felt bad for every one of them. They gave him 4 99-year sentences, and I was very glad to hear that.
Today, Linda lives a quiet life with her daughter and new husband in suburban Houston. And she's removed everything that reminds her of the man who made her life a nightmare.
I got rid of everything. I got rid of every picture we owned, every spoon, every piece of furniture. I wanted nothing to be reminded